So recently there was this popular mechanics issue that had the ballpoint pen as one of the top gadgets that changed the world. I've got some questions about that. What does it actually mean to change the world? Did the ballpoint pen really improve literacy rates or the ability to write, or was it just a huge breakthrough in some kind of something? So before we find all that out, we should probably learn about how the ballpoint pen was invented. The BBC usually has interesting stuff. Let's try that. The cheap pen that changed writing forever. It's a cool picture. Fountain pens are messy and impractical. Their replacement is a stroke of genius. So it looks like Gimbals in New York City in 1945 was the first to sell the new ballpoint pen. Fountain pens are leaky, they smudge, there's pooling ink blots. So the ballpoint pen dries quickly, doesn't smudge. It comes out in a steady stream that doesn't smear or leave solid pools of ink on the page. Clean, convenient, cheap. JK, wasn't cheap. It cost $12.50 when it was first released, which would have been more than $180 today. Yeah, there's no way in hell I'm spending $180 on a pen today. So people usually credit the invention of the ballpoint pen to this guy, László Bíró, Hungarian-Argentinian inventor. Oh, but the BBC thinks that the invention is actually a lot older than that. This guy, John J. Loud, an American, first patented his ballpoint pen in 1888. So this guy Loud was a lawyer. He wanted a pen that would be able to write on rougher materials like wood and leather. So he was the first one to put a revolving steel ball in a socket. So he basically just improved the fountain pen by adding the steel ball and adding a better reservoir for the ink. He thought it would be especially useful for marking rough surfaces like wood, coarse paper, or other things like leather. But it's too rough for paper. You couldn't use it to write on paper. Biro was the first one to be able to do it in the 1930s. That's how many years later? 42 years later. So Biro was a journalist and was very familiar with the drawbacks of fountain pens. He doesn't like it at all. So the breakthrough that this guy Biro had was that the ink itself was what needed to be rethought. So he worked with his brother, who was a dentist, Georgi, and also a talented chemist. So he realized that the ink that was used in newspapers dried much more quickly, and that was kind of the breakthrough brainchild moment. So this Georgi, the talented chemist brother, came up with a viscous ink that spread easily but dried quickly. So the cool part about this design is that the gravity and force are what is kind of powering the continuous stream of ink. And when the pen isn't being used, the ball sits tight against the end and prevents air getting in to dry out the ink. So I guess this is meant to be a picture of him. It's like a ballpoint pen ink portrait of László Bíró. He patented his new pen in 1938, but World War II made it difficult for him, as it did for most people. So László and his brother were actually Jews. Didn't it say they were in Hungary? They decided to flee to Europe and then go to Argentina. So the first Bíró pen was first released in Argentina in 1943. This is 2 years before they start selling them at Gimbals. The Air Force thought it was pretty cool because you were able to use the pens at a high altitude and they wouldn't leak. I guess fountain pens were tended to leak because of pressure changes. So it looks like his initial success was kind of localized to Argentina. In 1945, it starts to break out of just Bíró's control. The Eversharp company and this company are starting to manufacture. They buy the patent, but then this guy Milton Reynolds kind of buys a couple and then makes a few design changes and then kind of sidesteps László's patent. Almost instantly a success. Thousands of people trampled one another to spend $12.50 each for a new fountain pen. Gimbals ordered 50,000, had sold 30,000 by the end of the first week. So first-gen ballpoint pens were very similar in style to the fountain pens. They were intended to be refilled with ink. They were made of metal. The Reynolds pen was you can write with us for 2 years and you won't even need to refill it. If you wanted a truly cheap writing implement, you used a pencil. Yeah, okay, so where are pencils in all of this? Why is this the first mention I've heard of a pencil? So this kind of created a problem for them. People would buy refills, but they wouldn't buy more pens. They haven't discovered planned obsolescence yet. So the master stroke that changed the ballpoint game forever was from this guy, Michael Bic, Italian-born French industrialist. He realized that he was going to need high-volume, low-cost pens. He was not an inventor. He didn't invent anything, but he understood mass market. So he realized that instead of making them premium products and designing them to be regularly replaced, you could push things along a lot faster. So Bic sets up near Paris, He shortens his surname to 3 letters instead of the B-I-C-H. He goes from B-I-C-H to B-I-C. He gets that trademark logo, the Bic Boy. Let me look that up really fast. This kid right here becomes the Bic Boy. Bic's ballpoint pens go from what they were selling for 55 shillings, which is around $107, to 1 shilling. The ballpoint pen was the equivalent of today's smartphone. Before then, writing was stationary. You had to do it in a certain environment on a certain kind of desk with all of these other things to hand that allowed you to write. What are they talking about? Once again, where's the mention of the pencil in all of this? Do you need a special environment to write with a pencil? The ballpoint made it so writing could happen anywhere. So one of the main reasons it took off initially was because of the production techniques. Plastic mass production allowed them to be made very cheaply. So another one of the reasons for its success was that Bic hit upon a winning design right from the start. If the product you have needs no improvement, you probably won't have a lot of overhead. So Bic paints haven't really changed since the 60s. The hexagonal body makes it easy to grip. Transparent shaft allows you to see the ink running out. Tiny hole in the body equalizes the air pressure both inside and outside the pen. Ink dries in a couple of seconds instead of the 10 seconds it used to take. It really transformed African society? What? It really just wasn't a way for people to write easily before the Bic. What are you talking about? Like where? I'm pretty sure the pencil was around. Like maybe the pencil wasn't cheap? It wasn't as cheap as the Bic? Were pencils more expensive or something? Here they get into the plastic pollution crisis and how Bic pens are contributing. Just because the ink has run dry, why do we throw the whole thing out? When tech is outdated, nobody ever argues that pens are outdated. Even Zuck and Musk have a bunch of pens sitting around, and that's the end. Okay, let's look and see if we can glean some more information about the history before I start asking follow-up questions. Let's try this one. Dayspring pens. I hate reading articles that are published by manufacturers or people trying to sell stuff. Here's a handy little graphic that shows the history. So in 88 is when it starts, and then the 31, Bíró starts. 38, he patents his stuff. 45, Reynolds Rocket, the first pen debuts. In 1950, the Bic crystal is invented. 2006, lots of pens have been sold. Okay, so this says that László and György invented the ink with a paste instead of water. Here's a picture of John J. Loud. He was a leather tanner, as well as a lawyer and inventor. Oh, here's an image of Loud's invention. It's kind of hard to see, but there's the roller ball with 2 smaller little balls in there. Here's like the ink reservoir. Does it have like a clickable? No. Why is this little part on top? Also, how are they manufacturing things this small in the 1800s? This was in 1888, patented in 1888. Bíró got the idea for the printing ink while visiting printing houses, which makes sense because the other thing said he was a journalist. If they just put the unaltered newspaper ink in, it was too thick and clogged the mechanism. Oil-based inks used in newspaper prints versus water-based ink. Here are the features that were described in the patents. Oh, let's look at here's a link to the patent itself. Let's look at that. Got here's the ball sitting in the nib with the stuff flowing down. So here's the nib with no ball, and then here is the ball. Who is drawing this stuff? That's what I want to know. Are all these inventors this good at drawing, or do they have someone draft this up for them? Also, how are they manufacturing this? So here's the tiny little ball at the end with the ink going up here. I heard somewhere that it was capillary action that was what was drawing the ink up. Where did I hear that? Whew, there's a lot of writing. Okay, I think I am good. The pictures were cool enough for me. Well, to this day in Argentina, pens are still referred to as birroms or Biros. Here's an old-timey advertisement for the pen. So here's an image of the Bic crystal, the one that changed everything. This is saying that the market for the pen is perfect because education and literacy rates are steadily increasing, and this is showing literacy and literate and illiterate populations. So red is illiterate and green is literate. This is the whole world? What is this showing? Our world in data. Literate people in Sacramento, California, or illiterate people in Argentina. Can I get some more information about what this graph is showing, please? So according to them, 87% of people were illiterate in 1820. Move up to 1920, 31% of people are literate. 1976, 65% of people are literate. And then in 2023, 87% of people are literate, can read. So when the pen was made, let's see, 1950, 35% of people are literate. And then in the next year, 41%. So I don't think they're making the case that the pen increased literacy rate. I think they're saying that it was the perfect market because more people were able to read and write. Therefore, more people need to have something to read and write with. There's increased demand for writing instruments because of increased literacy rates. Fun facts about ballpoint pens. The world's smallest nano-fountain probe. Let's look at it. Whoa, dang. This is pretty cool. Ability to deliver precise molecules into single cells, usually in applications for therapeutic processes, diagnostics, and drug delivery. Application of the voltage creates a localized electric field between the NFP cantilever tip and the region of the cell membrane in contact with the tip. I don't know if this counts as a ballpoint pen, but it's pretty freaking cool. Anyways, other cool facts. World's biggest pen. Largest ballpoint pen, there is no picture. Oh, here we go. That's a big old pen, and it looks like it writes too. It's kind of cool. Okay, let's see if we can do a little more gleaning of information. I think we've learned most of the things we would need to know. Let's try Wikipedia. This is also known as a biro. That other article said it was a biro. Metals commonly used for the ballpoint tip are steel, brass, or tungsten carbide. Currently the world's most used writing instrument. Spawned its own artwork genre. That's cool. Ooh, here's the magnified. There's the ballpoint tip super close. It's kind of wild. And here's the movement of the ball way up close as it's rolling. That's pretty wild. Okay, here it does say that capillary action was one of the solutions to ink delivery flow problems. I was right. So this guy, one of their friends, Juan Jorge Maiden, left Germany with them and helped them file the patent with them. This is where the Biro comes from, for the names Biro and Main put together. So his early patents often use the term ballpoint fountain pen. They've got a bunch of links here. Let's check this one out. Oh, look at that. That's not the same at all. Look at how much different the ball is there. That's like a weird looking... How is the ball held in there? Interesting. So this has got like two little tongs on either side holding the ball. Whoa, okay. It says Eversharp Company was a maker of mechanical pencils in 1945. So there's definitely more going on here than just people being like, oh, now I have access to an easy, cheap, disposable pen. Now I can write things. No, there's mechanical pencils at this time. Come on, people. Why has nobody mentioned pencils yet? Can I just search how much did a mechanical pencil cost in 1950? Fountain pen network. These translucent ones were very popular in the 50s. The scripto pencils. Okay, it doesn't look like I'm gonna find an answer, but this seems like a large hole in the story of the pen thing, where everybody's singing its praises when there was like popular mechanical pencils. I don't know why it's bothering me so much, because obviously pens were really prolific and popular. Like, they obviously did really well and people did use them. I just don't understand why nobody's mentioning pencils at all. Or everybody's saying like, oh, people suddenly had access to writing materials that they could use anywhere. You could write on paper. Like, it doesn't have to, you don't need an inkwell and you don't need to worry about ink spilling all over your bag. Like, just use a pencil. So I don't know if I said this before, but the Reynolds Rocket was the first commercially successful ballpoint pen. This Wikipedia page goes on to talk about how things are being produced in China. How they were kind of switched to being produced in China in the 70s, it looks like. They made a lot of them. The different types of inks that are used. Black, blue, dyes, solvents, benzyl alcohol, phenoxylenthal. People use ballpoint pens in space. They're using ballpoint pens as an art medium for paintings instead of paintings. Here's some specifics on how they're manufactured. Ball bearings need to be extremely precisely manufactured, so on and so forth. Okay, I think that's probably enough on like how it was invented. I think we've got a pretty good gist. Now we need to know how it changed the world. So let's find out, first question, what was the reaction to the ballpoint pen in the 1950s? Let's try this one. Yesterday into today, the ballpoint pen. Technology creates paradigm shifts. That's what the ballpoint pen did. Made the lives of school kids and adults a lot easier. So this person was in school, I guess, in the 50s. Somebody used a slightly more risque blue ink in class, and the teacher, they wanted to know what the teacher's reaction was going to be, and the teacher's reaction was an amused comment, and then she didn't care. So it seems like they are still using inkwells, an ink bottle, in the 50s. This person had a tendency to overfill their ink pen when they dipped it in the inkwell, which would then drip ink onto the papers and desk, books and clothes. Bummer. Kind of detailing a lot of stuff about like the bummer of having an ink bottle. It would spill, you would knock it over, it would drip, or if you had a fountain pen, it would leak into your shirt pocket or it would leak into the bottom of your purse. This is not giving me much about its impact or like the way it was received. This says nothing about how it impacted society. Waste of time. Let's try endless pens. How the ballpoint pen impacted society. So some people in the 1950s believed that the ballpoint pen was ruining education. The values of thrift and frugality were being discarded since students simply used and threw the pens away. Characteristics of this pen changed the way people wrote. In class, writing became much quicker and easier. Students could write down lecture notes without having to refill or dip their pens in ink. They weren't worried about smudging ink on their papers. You didn't have to place pages on top of one another without having to wait for ink to dry first. Okay, so like once again, I'd hate to be a broken record, but like these are all ink specific problems. Like, are they not using pencils in school? Literacy increased because of the simple but ingenious invention. I feel like I've heard this claim a couple times now. I've heard where are people getting this information that literacy is increasing because of the pen? I would like to see a source, please. Okay, so I've been harping on the pencil a lot. Let me look into it a little bit. When did pencil use become widespread? What is with all of these articles written by people, the manufacturers? Like, why is Google giving me all of these bowl articles? Pens Unlimited, the Pen Warehouse. Jesus Christ, I just want like an actual like historical source. Somebody who's not Jackson's Art Supplies. I guess we could try the British Library. The history of the pencil. These are 3 little lengths of lead that were used for drawing or writing. Oldest known pencil in the world, 1630. Graphite was first discovered in Europe in the 15th century. Aztecs had used it for a long time to mark things. Originally, graphite sticks were wrapped in string. Later, graphite was inserted into hollowed out wooden sticks, and thus the wood case pencil was born. First factory opened in 1832. Cumberland Pencil Company. Okay, so first factory to manufacturing pencils is 1832. That is a long before the pen was invented. These pencils were super high quality because there was no graphite dust, and they marked paper clearly. Okay, that wasn't a lot. Let's look around. I guess we can try Wikipedia. I don't know why I hate Wikipedia so much. I just really don't like using it as a source. History. So there's a bunch of stuff here about like when it was like sort of being used incidentally. So and then 1506, the first blueprints for a modern wood encased carpentry pencil. English and German pencils were not available to the French during Napoleonic Wars. American colonists imported pencils from Europe, even after the American Revolution. Let's see, at some point during World War II, rotary pencil sharpeners were outlawed in Britain because they wasted so much scarce lead and wood, and pencils had to be sharpened in a more conservative manner with knives. Okay, so this is all telling me that the pencil use is widespread in the 1800s, long before the ballpoint pen was invented. Which I don't know what that tells us exactly, but it does tell us that people are weirdly leaving out the pencil's impact when they're talking about how amazing the ballpoint pen was. Oh, here's something interesting. Pen and pencil and typewriters supplies manufacturers. Ooh, okay, data, stats and stuff. Well, okay, we got some data here. Fountain pens, ballpoint pens, pencils, mechanical, lead for pencils, desk sets. These are imports of pens and pencils, fountain pens. So ballpoint pens and parts in 1959. Quantity is not known, but the value looks like 2 million. Looks like 2.5 million. And in the 60s, 1 year later, pretty close, a little bit less. Pencils, pencil, lead, non-propelling. Quantity, so they actually have a quantity, 84,000. Quite a bit less money is being made or being sold, I'm not sure, on the pencil, but it's definitely there. And mechanical pencils, very similar to regular pencils. Oh, not the next year. Whoa, it had a huge drop off that next year. Okay, I still have more questions about like the literacy rates and some other things. This is like genuinely a fascinating topic, but there's like surprisingly little like actual historical sources that are just coming up. I mean, I could probably do more digging and find more sources, but a little annoyed that there's so many pen manufacturers writing articles about this and ranking so well in Google. Anyways, I'm out of time though. I can't keep looking into it. So thanks for hanging out. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.